Welcome back to another episode of Talking Badgers. Gonna do another little impromptu episode today. I just wanted to touch on, the hiring of Jeff Grimes, the Wisconsin football program's next offensive coordinator. I've had a little bit of time to sit back, on paternity leave, watch a little bit of the film, dig into the numbers a little bit, try to make a little bit more informed opinion to relay for y'all. And my stance is going to stay the same. I do not have an opinion on whether or not this will work out. I think it would be outlandish to, kind of take a stance in that regard at this point, especially with how transient, college football rosters are at this point. Quite frankly, we don't even know who the starting quarterback is going to be this upcoming season, and obviously that's going to dictate a whole hell of a lot. But I do want to talk about some of the things that, some of my bigger takeaways, some of the things that I know or I think I know about who Jeff Grimes is and potentially what he is going to be bringing to Wisconsin. So obviously, I want to get one thing out of the way. I think there are a lot of people, who initially were really disappointed or underwhelmed by the hire because Jeff Grimes didn't fit the bill as, the flashy hire, the sexy pick, this time around. And for, those who, rightfully maybe were underwhelmed by the hire just in name alone, I would like to remind them of a man by the name of Phil Longo, who had a lot of people, myself included, excited when he was hired, and that did not work out so favorably. So the first thing that I want to point out that I do like about Jeff Grimes and what he is bringing is, one, the first thing he talked about, when speaking to Mark Tauger, is that identity. This man knows exactly who he is from an offensive standpoint. He is going to be bringing an identity with him to Madison, and it just so happens that identity aligns perfectly with what Wisconsin football has historically been when it's been successful. And I think more than that, philosophically, it just aligns with what Luke Fickell wants out of his offensive coordinator, what Phil Longo, really wasn't. He wants to build his entire offense around the run game. Yes, he has had a successful run game essentially everywhere he has been throughout his career. He's the creator of the RVO, the reliable violent offense, which on name alone, I'm just going to go out and say I'm a fan of that. But above all else, this is not a gimmicky offense at all. It's rooted in the fundamentals of playing sound football, which is something that, again, we know Wisconsin has been when it has been successful. But beyond that, he is going to also bring some nuance, some creativity, a lot of pre-snap motion to what he is doing to keep defenses on their heels. Take shots in the passing game. I think all of those things are really, really important. But, a lot of people are pointing to some of the numbers at Kansas. Kansas fans, were pretty vocal about not being real beat up about him leaving. And I'm just going to go on the record. I feel like I struggle to see why. Obviously, they are a year removed from losing their offensive coordinator, who, quite frankly, is one of the best in all of college football. So in most cases, that would be a step backward. But I'm somebody who believes quite a bit in the efficiency of an offense, maybe more than just the raw numbers. Obviously, at the end of the day, points per game and what you're hanging on the scoreboard is going to be the most important thing. But I think that his maybe advanced metrics are slightly more telling and show how well-rounded that he is as an offensive coordinator. So last year, Kansas, the Jayhawks running game finished sixth nationally. Excuse me, sixth nationally in EPA per rush, 13th in yards per play. They converted 50% of their third down attempts, which was the third best mark in the entire country, and they were 21st in EPA per dropback. So what that tells me is that his offense is very complimentary. I mean, he is successful on the ground, through the air. Tells me he is, picking the right spots to take all of those chances. I mean, at the end of the day, Wisconsin doesn't need someone who's going to come in here and produce 300 yards of passing offense to complement, 180 to 200 yards of rushing like that. We don't need that to be successful. What they do need, though, is a quarterback and a system that can produce someone who's going to come in and throw for 7.5 yards per attempt or greater on a decent efficiency, a high completion percentage, because that's what's going to open up the run game and continue to make them dynamic. And I think these numbers represent what Luke Fickell is wanting. It's the ability to have the threat, really whatever it is that you're calling. At its core, Grimes' offense is going to challenge defense by blending outside zone run schemes with complementary play action concepts. Got a chance to sit down, for a piece that I will have publishing later today at Badger Notes, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. To kind of look at some of the All-22 from Kansas this past season, and honestly, it was a lot of fun to watch. It truly, it's just a lot of things that as Badgers fans we haven't seen. But it's not gimmicky. It's designed to force defenders to make snap decisions. Uses a lot of pre-snap motion to put them into conflict. When there's overcommitment, he exploits it. Creates opportunities at every level of the field, really. And again, all of these opportunities, all of these things that they do well, are just going to be based around the run game. As he told Mark Tauscher, if you can run the football, then you can do anything. Everything else is going to work if you can run the football. Otherwise, just it makes you one-dimensional, and he wants an identity that is going to be based on a rugged mentality, and that is something that Wisconsin has been and wants to become under Luke Fickell again, which I think makes Grimes just in that regard a perfect pairing. But his commitment to the run game isn't exactly just going to be about grinding it out between the tackles. He wants defenses to have to adapt. There's a lot of different run concepts. Uses a lot of shifts, different formations, mismatches to open up running lanes. Whether it's outside zone staples, misdirection, really it's just a lot of different ways to keep defenses guessing, make the run game dynamic. But there's another thing that really stood out to me in watching some of the film. The creativity, one thing that Grimes uses a decent amount of is the Wildcat. Only 26 snaps of it the entire season, but I thought that maybe the more important nugget there was that he used Wildcat in 10 different games. So this is a part of his game plan on a week-to-week basis, and he uses it a lot in the red zone. But it's not just, the old-fashioned Wildcat of the running back taking the direct snap, maybe doing a read option with another tailback, did a lot of really interesting things where sometimes the running back would take it. Having a mobile quarterback would come across, take that handoff, maybe turn it into a play action. They had a couple of, explosive plays doing just that with Jalen Daniels this past season, where he was able to, on tight end leaks, pick up 25 yards, had a couple downfield shots doing stuff like that. Just some really unconventional looks, and also something that he utilizes a lot in the red zone. Putting that running back under center, bringing someone across on a jet sweep to, again, keep them honest, move defenders around, open up some running lanes. I thought he used it really effectively, I guess is what I'm trying to say. The Wildcat is not something that I think any team should rely heavily on, obviously, but I think that he picked his spots, and I watched all 26 snaps of it, and I would say that more of those snaps than not were effective in some way. So I think that that's really interesting, especially for a Badgers team that has struggled quite a bit to score in the red zone the last couple of seasons. I think that, Jeff Grimes brings with him, a fair amount of success in that regard. And so that will be interesting to see how that translates. I think obviously this is not exactly breaking news, but Jeff Grimes, 30-year veteran, he's got a lot of background working with the offensive linemen, which is going to be music to the ears of A.J. Blazik and Casey Robach. I think that those two right there did a tremendous job improving that room this past year. Maybe not up to the Wisconsin standard yet, but if you look at really what Badgers been dealing with since 2020, I think that was a really promising step in the right direction. And to add a guy like Grimes, who has got a lot of experience as a run game coordinator, a lot of success coordinating offenses based around the run. Not only do I think that is going to benefit Wisconsin's offensive linemen, but I think it's going to benefit AJ Blazik, Casey Robach as coaches, who I think both have really bright futures, and it's going to develop them as well. There's a lot of knowledge to be shared there. I just feel really good about what that's going to do for Wisconsin's offensive line room as a whole. I think that it is going to continue to be something that they can really sell to recruits. Like, look at all of these resources we are pouring into the offensive line, and a lot of schools are going to claim that they are built around an offensive line and what happens in the trenches, but Wisconsin is one of the handful of programs where they absolutely mean every word of that. And the proof is in the pudding there. The resources are there. I think it will be mutually beneficial for all of them to develop their careers, develop their players. Just continue to think that is another area where it makes a lot of sense. Want to touch a little bit more on the passing game. Graham is going to focus, a lot on high percentage throws, attacking those intermediate routes, but it's all to set up the more explosive plays through well-timed play action shots. As I talked about on the last episode, I think tight end is a position in the portal that they're really going to have to attack, and that's because in Grimes' system in particular, they're really pivotal to accomplishing what it is he wants to do. They serve as really versatile weapons. They got to be equally adept at blocking in the run game as they are at stretching defenses down the seams. They were used a lot creatively in the run game to lead blockers, crack back, a lot of different things. And I think that Wisconsin has got to bring in somebody who is a plus run blocker that can step in and be a complement, because they're going to play with more than one tight end this season. I guarantee you that. But to circle back to the passing game, I mean, he talks about wanting to take those well-timed, shots downfield, wanting to generate explosive plays in the passing game. It's not lip service. Under Grimes' direction, quarterbacks have had a lot of success in the deep passing game. Jalen Daniels this past season, 23.6% of his passes were at least 20 yards or more downfield, which is tied for the fourth most among all FBS quarterbacks. That's notable. Even during his time at Baylor, even towards the end there, their offense ranked top 30 for deep pass attempts, and that's despite having to rotate quite a few quarterbacks due to injuries. So again, I think that's pretty telling. It's a staple of what it is he wants to do, regardless of who it is that's back there, and I think that's important to note. You look at his time at BYU. He helped develop Zach Wilson into one of the most elite deep ball passers in all of college football. His final season there, almost 1,300 of his 3,600, passing yards came on throws of 20 or more downfield. It's a big reason why he was taken number 2 overall in the 2020 draft. These are just a few examples of how he complements the run game that I think is really encouraging. And as he said, once you establish the run, then the vertical passing game comes to life, and receivers get really excited about that. So for any fans who've been clamoring for more innovation on the offensive side of the football, I think Grimes, in a lot of ways, answers those calls while staying grounded in practicality. There's going to be some offensive line splits. There's going to be tempo shifts to disrupt defenses, pre-snap motions to mask play intentions. They're going to have, these weird little huddles where they come out of it, basically just get down into their stance and get the play off within seconds, not give the defense a lot of time to react. And it's not all just going to be out of shotgun. Talked about, whether or not they would be under center is really going to largely depend on the quarterback's comfort level there. But that he sees a lot of value in employing different formations. This past season at Kansas, Grimes featured a lot of heavy usage of 11 personnel. That was 51% of their snap share. That was complemented then by 12 personnel at 22%. It was their formations were pretty dominantly out of the shotgun. That was 61%. but with a fair amount of pistol worked in there, a lot of bunch formations to add some variety. I see a lot of different looks here, and I think that maybe what feels the most sustainable about what it is he wants to bring here is that it feels like something Wisconsin can recruit to. I think that's maybe my biggest takeaway on Grimes altogether. I don't feel comfortable saying, yeah, this is going to work, or no, this isn't going to work for reasons X, Y, or Z. I feel confident Wisconsin can recruit to this because they have historically recruited to this. It's going to be built around offensive line play. Wisconsin has always and will always be a draw for offensive line. Running back play. He gets two backs on the field a fair amount. 10% of his plays last year featured two running backs on the field at the same time. These are things that you can sell to recruits that, again, Wisconsin already has a lot of brand cachet with recruits for. The different dynamic there is I think that his offense absolutely is going to require a dual threat quarterback. That's something that Wisconsin, obviously Luke Fickell wants, and they're working towards that. They're in the process of rebuilding that quarterback room as it stands. Really just Carter Smith, Mabry Mettauer, Danny O'Neill from San Diego State. A source had kind of passed along to me that Wisconsin will be taking two transfer portal quarterbacks, and at least as things currently stand, he is expected to become one of those. Obviously, this is the portal era. A lot of things can change. Expected to visit campus this weekend. Again, portal era, not going to read too much into that until he is on campus. Once he's on campus, I think that the staff does a great job of wrapping things up. But they're going to bring in two more quarterbacks. They're going to be of the dual threat variety, which is something that Luke Fickell has had effectively, his entire career, really. And so maybe it's time at Wisconsin here, where, they were forced to roll Braden Locke due to injuries. I don't think Tyler Van Dyke fit the mold as a running quarterback, but he at least provided the threat. They're going to need dual threat quarterbacks, but if people see an opportunity to join a dynamic rushing attack with terrific offensive line play that also allows you to take shots downfield, that's going to appeal to these dual threat quarterbacks, either out of high school or in the portal. They can get the right veteran this offseason who can step in, kind of a plug and play guy, and then let some of these younger guys develop and, hopefully retain them for the future. I think we're on course for something that's sustainable. And that's obviously what we're shooting for here. And I think Grimes, to me, represents someone who can bring in, return the program's high floor, which to me is incredibly important. Maybe not my most popular opinion, but I don't think Wisconsin is ever going to be in a position to win a national title. I just don't, especially not with the way that college football is currently constructed without guardrails. Just not operating on the same playing field as some of the teams that we're chasing. Doesn't mean I don't think we can still be a really great football program. A better power run game could, like I said, bring the Badgers back to that high floor team. Something that's been foundational to this team's identity for decades, help them reach 22 consecutive bowl games. Pair that with the right quarterback to run the system, above average passing game. There's a lot of potential for something sustainable there. Grimes just wants to maintain unpredictability. I think in looking at the All-22 yesterday, I definitely felt that was something that he did. Helps maintain a competitive advantage. And, while Wisconsin might not lead the nation in scoring, I think this scheme offers the perfect formula for a program looking to reestablish its identity, find some form of consistency on that side of the ball. The system isn't just about putting points on the board. It's about building a foundation that can elevate the Badgers back into Big Ten contention, bringing us kind of out of that cellar that we are, kind of on the brink of maybe falling into. Nobody knows how it's going to play out. Stylistically, hiring Grimes makes a lot of sense to me. Feels like a lot more logical fit working alongside Luke Fickell than Phil Longo ever did, at least with the benefit of hindsight. Time will tell here, but I see the vision. I'm just going to leave it at that. I see the vision. I see what they want to do. Luke Fickell has talked a lot about, especially over the past year, what it is he wants this offense to look like. And when he spoke about it, it never sounded like what Phil Longo has ever been. And so that's not just on Phil Longo. That's on Luke Fickell for hiring a guy he never worked with and then expecting a Tiger to change its stripes, maybe. But Grimes, even though he's never worked with him, he went outside of his network, found somebody who aligns with him philosophically, aligns with the program's identity, and also has a history of bringing a passing attack that does a lot of the things Wisconsin has been wanting and needing to add, for a while now. So my take really is that Wisconsin did not need a total reset. It needed to return to what has historically worked while running a system that they can recruit to. Grimes he's a meat and potatoes, no frills hire. But this approach is exactly what the Badgers need to restore that offensive identity and ultimately build towards what I hope will be a sustainable future here at Madison. Again, time will tell. We'll see how it shakes out, but I think there's a lot to like about the Jeff Grimes hire. We'll see how they can, make portal additions to complement this system and see if they're able to retain some of their core pieces that they have right now. But really tough schedule coming up this next season. So if we see market improvement in offense, I think that we'll be onto something. All right, I'm going to get out of here. I want to thank all you guys for tuning in. While I've just been driving in the car, give me a little bit of an opportunity to talk ball with you guys. Leave any comments in the section. If there's any questions you guys want answered, might try to make this a little bit more regular thing where I just answer a few questions while I'm driving in the car on the way to work. Some of the only alone time I get nowadays. So I'll catch you back here, maybe later next week, and on Wisconsin.